Welcome to another edition of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you used to. I'm Lenny McAllister. I'm the guy whose favorite cuss phrase or cuss replacement phrase is now a trigger for many across America in libraries from coast to coast. Who makes this stuff up in the whole cancer culture thing? I think I got three people that are either responsible for it or very, very pissed off by it. I'm about to find out. Let me bring them on, starting with the lady down there, Kira Davis in Cancel, California. Kira, are you all part of this cancel culture thing, or are you America uncanceled? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
No, I'm not canceling anybody. I am for more speech, not less of it. Well, you know what? I kind of told a lie. There's one person I'd like to cancel, and we're getting very close to canceling him. It's Governor Gavin Newsom. You're fired.
Surprisingly, it only took you less than 2 minutes for you to get that recall advertisement in there. I'm going to start charging you PSA time. I'm just letting you know.
Recallgavin2020.com.
Exactly. Going now to the Cat in the Hat. That's a teaser. The guy down in Austin, Jeff Charles, who would not grace us with his green screen. Don't you dare say anything about this program not allowing you to do it, sir.
I will not have my green screen. I will not have it because it would be obscene. I'm using my regular background, so stop acting like a clown.
Boo!
Boo.
Oh, wow.
No one first.
Black Dr. Seuss. I'm changing my Twitter handle to that. Black Dr. Seuss.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you can do that if you like, and I'm sure it'll catch a lot of fans, and your fan club will really love you on Breaking Conservatarian. But you broke the red and black rule. Number one, you can't be smarter than Kira. Number two, you can't have more degrees than Dr. M. And number three, you can't tease the nerd. The nerd is the nerd. Everybody knows the nerd is the nerd. But if you kick the nerd when the nerd is down, it makes you look bad. Before I go to you, Dr. M, I digress. Dr. Metzler, please introduce yourself after you take a swig.
How y'all doing? So, glad to be back here on Red and Black, and just excited about all of the things we're going to talk about here in my Florida home with all the Florida background going on.
Go ahead and drink your wine. I gave you the clue to drink your wine. Go ahead. Because I'm going to talk to these two right now, because they've been having this little bit of back and forth about the dude who was born on the best birth date of the year. Now, why is it the best birth date of the year, Kira?
I don't know, Lenny. I feel like you're going to tell me.
I'm going to tell you because we can't keep you in suspense for another 50 minutes of this show.
No.
Dr. Seuss's birthday was March 2nd, which is a great birth date, not because of Ben Roethlisberger. Fooey Magooey, I don't know who he is. I know he is, but I don't know him. It's because it's my wife's birthday, which makes it a fantastic birth date. So
Fair enough.
Put that
Fair
out
enough.
Because I like being married.
Yes.
That said, my favorite cuss phrase replacement is green eggs and ham. And if you spell it out by syllable and figure out what it's replacing, I had to find a way to do that, to the point where I said green eggs and ham so much, my now 21-year-old thought I was cussing when I would say green eggs and ham. Because I'd stub my toe, I'd miss a shot playing basketball, I'd say green eggs and ham. He thought it was a cuss word. The first time he ever saw the book, he got nervous. He asked if we were reading something obscene. True. I digress. Have a drink, everybody out there. That said, though, you two have been going back and forth on Twitter about the whole canceling or not canceling of Dr. Seuss, who's been gone from this planet for a couple of years now, over books that were written 70 years ago in some instances. And I want you all to continue that, because I don't know, it's both irrelevant because Dr. Seuss is not alive, but then extremely relevant because this is the epitome of what we do in America these days. We don't like one or two things, and rather than putting it in context and using it as a teaching moment, we just try to scrub it from history. Ladies first, here I go.
Well, so Jeff and I have been going back and forth about whether or not this Dr. Seuss thing is a big deal, or whether or not like we're wasting our time. Like basically, we have bigger fish to fry. And I disagreed with Jeff, and I felt that he was sort of being condescending on the issue, because this is an important issue to conservatives, not necessarily the Dr. Seuss books themselves, because I don't know. I mean, they've never gone out of fashion, right? We always read them to their kids, but I don't know how many people that are complaining about it are like sitting down to Dr. Seuss every night. But I guess the point is that we're up against this cancel culture and this culture of hypersensitivity so badly that that I think a lot of conservatives feel nervous about when an organization, in this case, it began as the estate of Dr. Seuss, but in this case, the estate of Dr. Seuss says, we don't want to print these books anymore. We don't like the imagery in them. We're embarrassed by them, and we're going to take them off the market. And a lot of people, including myself, I think that's a mistake. And one of the reasons, and we've talked about it on the show before, Lenny, especially when it comes to Aunt Jemima, we bring this up, and I talk about how I collect a lot of like Black, I guess what we would call Jim Crow art memorabilia, or memorabilia from the Black theater back in the early days, even from minstrel shows. It's a very important piece of history to me as a Black American, because I think it's important to never forget where we came from and never forget how we were viewed in this society. And there's a strange sort of I don't know how to describe it. It's a strange sort of beauty in a way. And it's in that respect, I feel the same way about the Dr. Seuss books. It's not about the books themselves. It's about the idea that whether or not we like what's in them, they do depict a certain period in history. They depict a certain time. If we judge these books by our modern sensibilities, what's next? I just feel like we're always encroaching on this free speech issue, and this issue of what can and can't stand these days. So just wrap it up. Yeah, it's my feeling. It's my feeling that this is something worth complaining about, not necessarily because of Dr. Seuss, but just because this represents a larger issue in the culture.
So,
Jeff disagrees with me.
Kira's trying to save the Who's in Whoville, and you are the Grinch.
He's the Grinch.
You're the Grinch, Jeff. So
that is my favorite Christmas movie.
Yeah, well,
it's good. Not the Jim Carrey version, though.
Why?
I love the Jim Carrey version.
Oh, see, you have immediately disqualified yourself from this conversation. I knew I was going to win. I knew I was
going to get rid of cats and hats and who's. Why, Jeff?
So here's the thing. I understand where Kira's coming from, because we are in an age where cancel culture is a thing. And I honestly think that reality is why we tend to overreact, because there are a ton of legitimate areas where the far left is trying to cancel people. I just don't think that every single instance of this constitutes some type of cancel culture. Now, here's the thing. I understand people disagreeing with that decision. There are a lot of valid, well thought out arguments. Kira just gave them. My problem is when people take this and make it sound like we're about to experience an American Third Reich because a company is choosing not to publish 6 books. Dr. Seuss wrote like over 60 books, and we're talking about 6 of them. I understand being annoyed by that. I understand being frustrated by it. But if they don't want to be associated with that anymore, they have the right to not be associated with it. One thing I always say is that not everything is worth conserving. Now, all in all, if they decided to continue doing the books, I don't care. That's fine. That's their right. And if people want to buy it, that's fine too. I don't think that people who want to buy the books are doing so because they're rates. That's ridiculous. I just think that when we're having an issue, like for instance, like with Gina Carano getting canceled, that is worthy of outrage, because that actually affected her life. And the idea
these things are connected, Jeff. Let me stop you there. Like, don't you I get it. It's like this is a little thing and that's a big thing, but we don't get to the big things without the little things. Let me ask you this, Jeff. If the estate came out tomorrow and said, look, because we have these 6 books that are problematic, it really means all 60 books are problematic, and we're taking them out of print. Would you have a problem with that?
Now, yeah, that's a good question, because I was saying that if they were talking about canceling all of his books or even most of his books, now we've got a problem, because now that doesn't make any sense. And
you don't think it's a tiny jump from these 6 books to these 60? Because let me posit this. Let me posit this, Jeff, because I hear what you're saying and I agree. But also, as we were having our disagreement on Twitter, Amazon came out and said they're not selling those books anymore. eBay came out and said they're not allowing people to sell those books anymore. So just that quickly, it went from just being the estate doing this to being some of our most major book brokers deciding to do this. So already we saw an example that it already spread outside its boundaries.
But let me go to our. You're not a Dr. Seuss, but you're a doctor, so I'm going to go to you. With that said, and again, it's in the contract. With that said, though, I mean, part of what Kira's example is, they're following the lead of the estate, and there seems to be a parameter there, and there seems to be a reason behind it. I could kind of see Kira's point, but I can see Jeff's point too, which is if they're self-selecting and they're saying, look, and by the way, the late Dr. Seuss had a problem with some of the imagery in his own books, and he expressed that himself. Yeah. So they're following what he said in his own words after he passed away. Is this really going down the same path of canceling everything, Dr. M, that some of us within America are concerned about post-January?
Yeah, but see, here's the problem. The fundamental problem, I think, is as Kira said. Look, it's not about the 6 books in and of itself. Here's the larger problem. In America, we are in a situation where we tend not to think for ourselves. We tend to follow the leader, whoever that leader is. And the fact is, if it was limited only to the estate, okay, fine. However, Amazon, next, whoever else, then in fact it becomes embedded and very much a part of the cancel culture. That's my concern. I am always for more speech rather than less speech. Whether I agree or disagree with the speech is irrelevant. I am for more speech. And so the idea that, yeah, it starts with, in fact, the estate. Here is the problem. It starts with the estate and it snowballs. So then what do we have? We have cancel culture personified and in fact embedded in our culture. That's the concern for me.
Do you think it's going to? Do you feel like this is going to find a place to stop, where this is going to be a story that ends in 48 hours, or do you feel like we're going to hear more and more about this, where this is going to end up being that snowball, Jeff, that Dr. M's talking about?
With Dr. Seuss, I honestly, I don't think it's going to go on that much longer. Dr. Seuss will still remain an American icon, whether Joe Biden wants to talk about him or not. Now, that doesn't mean that cancel culture is going anywhere. But I mean, Dr. Seuss Enterprises, the company that handles the publishing of the books, they're not the only company to do something like this. Warner Brothers did that with their old racist cartoons. You can still get them online.
Like that either.
But that's the thing. I mean, you didn't see them cancel Warner Brothers. Even Disney, they don't have Song of the South. You can still get it if you want, and then you can still get the rest of the Disney catalog. So I think that there are certainly areas where we do need to be worried about it. But I think that we just tend to overreact so much to everything. Not everything is worth fighting over. Now, again, if they had said, okay, now we need to cancel Dr. Seuss, period, now I've got a problem with that. But I mean,
let me say this.
And on top of that, it's not the government doing this. It's a private company doing it. And again, it's only 6 books. That's not going to lead us into Nazi Germany.
None of this is this is the problem we're having with this whole cancel culture conversation, because none of it's the government, but it's still society, right? Like we said that about Parler, like, oh, or whatever alternative media. Well, if you want your own social media, build it, but then you got to build the servers and you got to build the fiber optic cables. But like, what about this is my thing, and I'll end with this point and let you all carry it from here. But conservatives have done this with the entertainment culture for decades. Mm-hmm. We said this is beneath us. These fights are below us. These fights are silly. The entertainment is garbage and we don't need it. It just puts garbage into your spirit. And we just acquiesce the entertainment culture and we ceded the battlefield to the left, and now look what we have. They're so influential that they can even influence elections. You know, they can influence what kind of news people see. We have completely lost the culture battle, which is a thing you complain about all the time, Jeff, and rightfully so. We've completely lost the culture battle, but that is because conservatives were always of the mind that there were more important issues to talk about, and we have paid the price for that dearly. So while I take your point that the seat can seem like a little thing, and I think it's a good point, by the way. I don't want to, I definitely believe you make a good argument. I just disagree with it. I think that I take your point, but I have been around too long to know better. I know that
You're only 28 years old. You haven't been around that long.
Okay, Lenny. Okay.
But then let's also be clear, because there's part of this argument I think is fallacious, which is this is not a free speech issue. This is not a First Amendment issue. And I think we are, in fact, conflating that in the press. As it relates to the First Amendment, that applies to government actors. So let's be clear that what we're talking about is a cultural canceling and not a government sanctioned canceling. I think we're crossing that line.
Yeah. And I will say that I understand the free speech argument from the cultural perspective, because I mean, the First Amendment, the law applies to the government, but then you also have the spirit of the law, right? You have the spirit of the First Amendment, and that's what people are, I think, are talking about here. And I totally understand that argument, and I think some valid points are made. But I mean, and I understand that little things can turn into big things. But even if we're talking about the cultural war, there are some things going on that none of us would like. I mean, I keep talking about Gina Carano, and it's not just because she's hot. That's only part of it. But what they did to her, they do that to people in Hollywood all the time. And when does that bleed out of Hollywood and come into our regular lives? That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
And she's hot.
Yeah. Stop. I want you to make a good point and not throw that in there.
Why
I think that was a great point.
Hot. She's a fox.
She is.
I'm mad at him.
Hi,
Now Kamala.
Yeah, then it's a different story.
That's a whole different conversation.
And this is a pretty interesting point to pivot, because Kira, you said something that I understand where you're going with it. There's a lot of instances where conservatives have just ceded the entertainment industry. But then the first thing that came to my mind, two things actually. Number one, the news ratings. Fox News has dominated the news ratings for years and years and years. Tucker Carlson was just bragging about how he's had the highest ratings of any TV show in history as far as a daily show. So it's like, are we really?
Yeah, but that's because they've had no competition since the beginning. It's only in the last 5 years that they've had competition.
You can't qualify free market principles. Ma Bell dominated, telecommunications for two reasons. One, because they were really good at it. And number two, they got to a point in time where they were able to monopolize.
Yeah, but look at what's happened to Fox's ratings since November. They have tanked, and not just because they turned on Trump and his voters got mad.
That's a big reason why a lot of conservatives moved over.
It's wrong to say, Lenny, that because we have Fox News, suddenly we own the culture. That's silly.
What I'm saying is, you said that we had completely lost it. And I'm saying, number one, I was looking at the Fox News rating, and the fact that the person that's catching up to them is Newsmax says something about there's obviously still a niche for conservatives. Number two, and this is my pivot. So please allow me this pivot, because
okay, but I'm not going to let you get away with pretending that Fox News represents the culture.
No, I gave an example. I'm not saying it's the whole culture. I'm saying maybe we're not as far gone as we think we are, to Jeff's point, which is we're not going to Nazi Germany and completely being locked out. Everybody paid attention to CPAC last weekend, to America Uncanceled. Everybody, look, CNN, C-SPAN, everybody paid attention to CPAC, and it wasn't just because Donald Trump spoke. And this actually goes to the Black conservative panel that you two had a chance to witness. You all were doing your thing down in Florida as well. A lot of people paid attention to that panel at CPAC, and I want to talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to go to you, Dr. M, first, because you've been doing this since we were all knee-high to grasshoppers, as far as being Black conservatives and being out there in the media. Give us a little perspective on what you saw at CPAC with that panel, considering that you were doing CNN hits and Rush Limbaugh hits before any of us were in the movement.
Yeah, and I think, I thought the panel was well orchestrated. I thought the panel was very well managed. Some of the folks on there I have issues with, largely because I don't believe they serve conservative principles well. But it's a Big Ten, so they had the opportunity to be able to express that. My biggest issue, though, was what solutions did we walk away with? What policies did we walk away with? The energy was great. The topics were great. I'm not sure what the way forward is, or whether, in fact, that was the objective. For me, there was a lot of fluff. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of enjoyment. However, and I'll tell you, I take issue with a lot of what Angela Stanton says. I just do, because I don't understand what all that is. Where are we going? Okay, what are we doing?
And she's not really a conservative, is
No,
she? I don't think
no.
so, right?
No, she's not
I'm
a
not sure.
conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
No.
like a libertarian. She's
She's
not
a
really
libertarian.
conservative. Yeah.
No, and I mean, so she grabs on Angela Stanton King, somehow goddaughter of Alveda, blah, 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 blah. But I'm not sure, again, what the message is. And so the critique for me is, I am not sure what we walked away with relative to policy and direction. Rah, 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 great. What are we doing next?
But Jeff, and isn't that part of what, I mean, we've talked about this, and Kira, I'll get to you because you're the one that said that there's not necessarily a Black conservative movement, and you expressed some fatigue with even going through that title. So I'm definitely going to get to you. But Jeff, in regards to that, is that not exactly the critique of many Black conservatives who wear that label, but when you hear them talk, it's, about something different? And Lord knows we're going to go talk about She Who Shall Not Be Named on this show, because she put out another tweet that made absolutely no sense. In part, I think, because this panel came out this past weekend and there was a little bit of, oh crap, I'm losing my smoke. I got to show them I still got it. Almost like, the 15-year pro that still thinks they got the hops and tries to dunk and misses the dunk. Really, really sad thing to say. I digress. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead and have a drink. Dr. M.
Yeah, you know what? The doctor's criticism is apt. And here's the thing. I had that same criticism about every panel that I went to. But it had nothing to do with the people on the stage. It's the fact that all of those panels were like 5 minutes. I mean, they were like 30 minutes. But I mean, there wasn't enough time to really dig into stuff, because there were other panels that I went to and I was excited about them. And then when they were done, I was like, wait a minute, you guys just got started. And I don't know if this is my first CPAC, so I don't know if this is normal. I've seen videos of other CPAC events, and those panels went on for an hour. But in this one, pretty much every panel only went on for 30 minutes. You can't dig into a topic in just 30 minutes, especially one that requires a lot of depth, a lot of nuance. I mean, some of the people on that stage, I've heard them talk about these issues in depth, and it did them a disservice. I listen to Sunny Johnson, she gets deep. 30 minutes isn't enough for her even alone. Same with Maj Touré. That panel needed to be an hour, and I would have liked 90 minutes, because the issues that they wanted to talk about are so deep and so complex that it requires time. Now, I know a lot of Black conservatives do get that criticism, that there's not much substance here, and that's a valid criticism. But I don't think that criticism applies to a lot of people that were on that stage. And they probably had reasons for making that short, but I really felt like they hit some good points. I think they did the best they could with what they had, but we need better. We need a longer conversation on these issues, because these issues are important enough to have given it a good amount of time, and that audience was ready for it. So but it's kind of a missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Doctor, jump in real quick, and then Nakira.
Yeah, but as an educator, let me say this. It is a design flaw. You don't need all those folk up there talking at the same time. It's too much blackness in a very short period of time. And
You're a
that's-
racist.
yeah.
There's a lot of blackness into us.
Sounds
A
so
lot of
racist.
going on.
Holy cow.
No,
And-
he's right, because white folks can only take so much. And I will tell you the story about the
And
Black
Kira-
conservative panel I was on
saying that as
Hannity
a
once.
Canadian, by the way. She, you know, you got to remember she was born in Canada. She's saying that as a Canadian, that was too much blackness for the white folks.
No,
This is going down the wrong track real fast. Go ahead, Kira.
no, I know what he meant. He didn't mean like black people are too much. It was too much for the white folks.
Yes,
It was too much.
too much.
Too much at one time can be off-putting. And I know this because like 8 or 9 years ago, I did a Black conservative panel on Hannity with like 25 of us. And at the break, Sonny was on that panel too. And at the break, he was like, "Why is it so loud in here?"
Right. Right. Exactly.
I was like, dude, you can't put 25 black people in a room and in a small room together and think it's gonna be quiet. Crack me up. I think about that all the time.
You
They only give them 30 minutes to talk.
Let me say this real quick. You got loudness during the Glenn Beck one. I was on the first one that they did, and literally Charles Payne almost got into a fight with somebody that was a participant in the crowd.
Oh Lord.
We didn't have a crowd.
Oh, we did, and it was hilarious. I still will never forget that. That was 2009. I digress. Go ahead, Kira. Go ahead.
I think everything Jeff said was right, and Doc said was right. With Jeff, he's right. The panels are too short. Sometimes what you're looking at in past on the main stage, panels are short because you get a lot of people, right? But in the past, what usually happens is you have breakout sessions where you have those longer conversations, and we didn't have many of those this year. And I'm sure that's due to COVID stuff and having to rearrange it at the last minute. There were too many people on the stage, so we couldn't get to hear the real brilliance. There were some great points made. But to me, it's a start. Having been to see a lot of CPACs over the last 10 years, knowing that those type of people don't usually get their voice on stage, and that typically CPAC will only make room for 1 or 2 black people at a time. So to see a full panel like that gave me, I was encouraged because I saw that at least they were trying, and to have a guy like Maj moderating, who 10 years ago maybe wouldn't have been given the time of day by the CPAC culture. So I think it was great for Chris is right. Like there were no solutions, right? There wasn't enough time to do any solutions. And I think also that wasn't the point of the panel. I think what the point was and what they got across was to let white conservatives know, hey, we're here too. So this isn't a movement of 1 or 2 figureheads, and then that's all there is. And there isn't a movement of, as Shamika very deftly put it, Carlton conservatives. The difference between a Carlton and a Will, a Will Smith on Fresh Prince. Both are conservatives, but they speak to different groups. They have a different voice. And so I think a lot of times the Republicans have seen a lot of Carlton conservatives, which are fine. Love. I mean, my kids and I watch.
Staring at me every time you say Carlton. That's not even cool.
I wasn't going to say
feel
anything.
people through YouTube just glaring at me every time you say that phrase. So stop.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone.
All voices are welcome, but I do think that the panel was a great introduction to the diversity of Black representation on the conservative side.
I'm gonna let me play devil's advocate, Dr. M, for just a second. How many flipping introductions are we going to get to a Republican Party and conservative movement that was founded on abolition for Black people, that had scores of Black people representing it in office all the way up through the 1920s, 1930s? I mean, just the fact that we keep talking about these reintroductions and the next Black conservative that's going to talk about these issues and bring white conservatives on along. And then at the same exact time, even in this conversation, we sat there and said it was too much blackness for the white folks there, so they had to limit it to a half an hour. I believe I did a pro-life panel on the main stage in 2016 that went 45 minutes. And it was somebody that was disabled. It was, I'm trying to remember the activist name. And I know it was a Catholic priest and me. We were up there for, I believe, 45 minutes. But it's too black past a half an hour to talk about issues where the country's getting blacker.
We said that, though, not CPAC.
No.
Let's make that clear. We said that. Matt
No,
Schlapp
yeah.
didn't say that.
Well,
CPAC
but
didn't.
here's the pushback I'm saying. I know we said that here on Red and Black. The pushback I'm giving is we keep talking about these introductions to different type of black conservatives. We keep talking about these introductions to our community. We keep talking about these introductions to certain issues. We keep talking like that. There's never the next, and this goes back to your point, Kara. I'm gonna go to you first on this. This goes back to the fatigue that some black conservatives have being out there for the longest time and saying, okay, I got to fit into this box and this box and that box and this box and that box. I got to be a Carlton conservative to keep you safe and use my prep school background to make sure you feel like you're welcome. But the moment I push back and show you that I really, really am a black man, you get a little bit offended. But I got to make sure I throw certain type of code switching in there as well to let you know that I'm not that, far away from you. And that can be exhausting.
Fair enough. The reason that I think I felt more hopeful about this panel than I would have in the past is because the whole atmosphere at CPAC was different this year. I even tweeted out, I saw more black people at CPAC this year than probably all the other years I've gone combined. And I'm quite serious about that. And not to say that it was like 50-50, but it was definitely noticeable. I definitely believe that's the Trump effect. And Trump has really sucked the culture back into the Republican Party. So is it a shame that we've got to do our quote reintroductions after being the party of abolition? Sure. But that party journey didn't happen overnight, and the journey back won't happen overnight. And to me, after a dozen years of watching the same two people on the CPAC stage, it was refreshing to see them take a chance on at least to me, it says they're watching. At least to me, it says they're interested in more than one type of voice. So, and again, I saw that reflected in the attendance at CPAC. So I do believe, because of the introduction of Trump into this whole conversation, that there is a chance that this journey could move a little differently and a little quicker this time around.
Well, Jeff, let me throw some cold water on all this, because there are some people that continue to get at least a platform that I'm really thinking shouldn't. Now, I know you can't see this tweet, but trust me, you don't really want to see it. It's from your favorite cousin Candy, who is once again asking questions about our culture in a way that shows just how much I don't think she loves our culture.
Wait, you got blocked, Jeff?
She blocked me a long time ago, but I can still see her stuff. I did a live stream on it earlier today. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But
she didn't like me challenging her on George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery for some reason. I can't imagine why.
But here we go again, right? And I'm going to go to Jeff, then Dr. M, and go around, if you will. Here we go again, where number one, like I said, I genuinely believe the panel led to I got to put something out there. Number two, this is somebody that doesn't have an attachment to the black community, which is one of the critiques of many black conservatives. You're empty on policy. We were just talking about another black conservative before we started on air. I won't go into any type of alliteration as to who it might be. For those of you that don't know what alliteration is, go look it up in a dictionary. Or Dr. Seuss.
No comment.
I digress. With that said, here are these people on these platforms that are doing more harm than good, Jeff, as you see what we saw with the panel at CPAC, as we see other black conservatives out there, as you're breaking glass ceilings, as Kira's breaking glass ceilings, as Dr. M's been doing his thing for amount of years. What do we do with this, and what do we do with your cousin?
Nothing. Let her say what she wants. I don't want to subtract her voice. I don't want to. And here's the thing. She's not the only one who reacted because of that panel. There were others. in what I call Black Conservative Inc. who weren't very happy about that panel. And the thing is, and that's why I'm more optimistic about it. That I told Mosh himself, like, the fact that they even let you have these people on the stage is a turning point. This shows that there is a shift in the zeitgeist from the right.
Hold on, that wasn't a double entendre on your cousin Candy with that turning point jet.
Maybe. but I mean, it is. I mean, and the thing is that, you know, the Black Conservative Inc., that's always going to be there. I want more voices. I'm glad that they had that panel, even though I have my issues with the length. But I mean, these aren't the normal safe conservatives that they would have. These are people who are willing to say, hey, this is what we're doing wrong when it comes to reaching the Black community. You won't get that from Candace Owens because she wants to blame it all on the Black community. And it's not just her, it's the entirety of the Black conservative establishment. But now we have more voices out there, which is exactly what we need, because especially with white conservatives, I know we were joking saying, you know, that was too much blackness. Honestly, like I said, I think they were ready for it. I think that audience was ready for it. I couldn't walk 10 minutes without seeing a Black person. And when I was wearing that Black Guns Matter shirt, people were coming up to me like, hey, Maj Touré is great. They love Maj Touré. I got so many comments on him. A couple that thought I was him, but most of them knew I wasn't him.
But hold on, Dr. M, they love Maj Touré because of the Second Amendment support. How would they feel if a Black conservative came up and said, and by the way, that Fourth Amendment that you also hold dear in the Bill of Rights, that's violated with stop and frisk. I remember talking about that in 2015, and I can assure you, when I said that about the Fourth Amendment and not the Second Amendment, I was called the Black Republican Al Sharpton.
Yeah, well,
that was after a haircut, by the way.
Well, there are a lot of things related to that. First of all, I think we cannot expect CPAC to be the be-all and the end-all for Black conservatives and Black conservative gathering. That would be a problem. It's not going to happen. That's number one. Number two, as it relates specifically to Candace Owens, girl, bye. I mean, listen, say whatever you want to say. That's fine. You do not attract Black people to the movement by telling Black people how stupid and dumb and culturally ignorant you are. What would you know about that? In addition to which, you cannot tell me there's no racism in America, yet the NAACP wins a lawsuit for you in which you said the white boys were trying to lynch you. Girl, what is wrong with you? Take several seats. Sit your ass down somewhere. And so from my perspective, the issue becomes Candace Owens is not a conservative. She is a grifter. Let's be 100% clear. It's all about the Benjamins. What is her connection to the Black community? None. What is her connection to money? Everything. Like my grandmother would say, everything. Okay, so let's be 100% clear about that. And I've been blocked by Candace, I don't know, since the beginning of time. And that's fine. But, you know, say what you have to say, but you are not representative of the direction in which you're trying to go. Your question is, how fat is my purse going to be? I'm done with that.
There's a couple of things before I go to Kira. Number one, I'm going to throw shade. I'm sorry. Number one, this is why I don't say I digress too often during this show. Because if I say it too often in the first half of the show, by the time I come to him, he's had a little too much of this. He really goes off. That's number one. Number two, I thought it was funny, Kira, that, and I hope y'all aren't friends because I'm going to throw a little bit of shade, but I thought it was funny that Chris said he has blocked Candace Owens ever since her name was Crystal Wright. I digress.
Yeah, there you go.
That was a deep cut. Oh my gosh. I have not heard her name.
Sorry.
Holy cow, Lenny. Oh my gosh. I have not heard her name in years. That was a deep cut. Wow. That was like Hillary and Freedom Fries today.
I got receipts. Yeah. I got receipts. Right, Kira.
Look, I'm not willing to be as strong publicly, I think, as Chris is, because there's a lot about her that I don't know. But I will say this is what bothers me about Candace. I wrote an article that went viral last year, even on the left, especially on the left. I think a lot of them were surprised to find out that people like us are here, that we feel like this. But it was called The Trouble with Candace. And I said, look, I'm with Jeff, right? Let her do her thing. Great, good for her. She's out there making her money, doing her thing. More power to her. I don't like that I have to answer for her a lot of the time, and I'm expected to answer for her. So I wanted white conservatives to know that she doesn't speak for us. And so I don't want to have to answer for her. But the other problem that I have with her, and that a lot of Black people have with her, is that she's not speaking to us. So that tweet that you posted today, Lenny, I tweeted out, I said, you know, who is she talking to? Who is she talking to? Who is it? You need, that's what, if you're sitting here listening to this conversation and you feel uncomfortable because you really like her and you think she takes it to the left and she's brave and she's strong and she's a hero. And by the way, she might be very strong. I mean, I think you have to be to get to the level she's on. And tenacious, if you're looking at this conversation and thinking, gosh, they seem really like they're going hard on her. The next time you read a tweet from her, the next time you read an article from her, the next time you see her on TV, I want you to ask yourself, who is she talking to? Because when I come on this show or when I do any other show and I want to talk about race in the Black community, I'm talking to Black people, unless it's a white person asking me to explain something to them. My messages about conservatism have everything to do with lifting up Black people. And even when I criticize our own community, and I've plenty of criticism for our community, we're not perfect. We have our own issues to deal with and a long way to go. Tangentially, she's saying that, but that's not the point she's making. What she is talking to the people that are going to cheer her on and clap for her and see we're not racist because this is all the Black people's problem. This is all their fault. We're not the racist one. We're not the problem. They are. And look, here's this Black woman saying that. And while there are a lot of people who will come back at me and say, well, what do you disagree with her on? Isn't she ever right? Is she ever right? Well, sure, she's right. She knows the talking points of conservatism. You can listen to Candace Owens and hear every talking point. She has them down. They're not hard to find, but she can't back them up with, you cannot hear Candace go into depth about ideas and ideology. She doesn't have that depth, whether it's her age, her experience. But my main point is this: let her do what she wants. I don't care. I promise you, people who are about to write us a bunch of nasty messages on the YouTube page, that we are not jealous. We are not petty. This is the pushback I get every time. It has nothing to do with that. The fact is that you guys get so excited. I'm talking to our white brothers and sisters now. You guys get so excited to hear some things come out of her mouth, and you wonder why we get upset, because she's not talking to us.
Well,
she's talking to you.
We don't get upset. I don't get upset about Jeff's cousin Candy, because candy is not food. It is full of sugar. There's no nutrition to it, and it will just get you high as a kite and make you fall over and go to sleep once you overdose on it too much. And that's what candy does. And that's what candy does in the conservative movement as well. I don't really care about that. The main concern, though, I think, is looking, and I'm sitting here listening to you, Kira, and Jeff, I'm going to go to you real quick before we talk about CPAC and straw polls and the ridiculous nature of that in one example. But Jeff, if there were a CPAC panel next year that had Candace Owens and Sonny Johnson and Tim Scott and Chris Metzler on it, and you had a seat as well, Jeff, what should that conversation look like? I'm going to give you about 30 to 45 seconds to just...
Oh, I don't get to go. So Jeff and Doc get to go, but I don't get to go to the panel?
Yeah, you messed up.
You're a keynote.
Contract, Lenny.
You didn't let me get to that yet. You're a keynote.
Oh.
So go back to Radio Row and do your thing for just a second. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, first off, she wouldn't be on the panel if Sonny Johnson were on it. She'd be like booking it, because that's already happened. They were supposed to talk, and she ducked it. But I mean, I think it would look like the debate that we're already seeing. It might just be more civil because people are talking on a stage, but it would really reveal the schism between the establishment Black conservatives and the non-establishment Black conservatives. And honestly, I mean, people keep talking about, oh, we don't need this infighting. Black conservatives, stop fighting with each other. By the way, Mitt Romney sucks. Oh, well, you can talk about other Republicans, but we can't. Okay,
we can't. Right.
But the thing is, this conflict is happening no matter what people think about it, and it needs to happen. There's a lot of conflict on the right now, and it needs to happen. This is how we get stronger, by challenging our ideas, challenging our approaches, challenging each other. I don't make personal attacks about her. Like, I don't call her names or whatever. But it is important that we have these ideas compete. And that's why it's important that we have more voices. That's why I don't care what she does, because I think that if enough of us get out there, our ideas are better than Black Conservative Inc., because Black Conservative Inc. has failed for 60 years. So that's why I think that mostly white audience at CPAC was ready for something different. But I think it goes beyond that. I think beyond CPAC, I think a lot of white conservatives are ready and open to hearing something different.
Dr. M.
Well, and here's the thing. When you sit in front of the former vice president of the United States and tells him there are no issues of racism and discrimination in the United States currently, which Candace did say to former Vice President Pence, girl, you have a problem.
I'm trying not to be in this conversation, but a lot of things are coming up that I had a chance to do. Kira kind of remembers, Jeff may or may not remember, Dr. M, I know you remember, I had a chance to be part of that listening tour.
Yes.
My comments to the former vice president were very respectful, but rather different in regards to, like, we were talking about, law and order. And I reminded him, yes, we need law and order, but we need constitutional law and order.
That's right.
We can't have two different realities for Black America and white America and then say we need law and order.
You talked about school choice.
Yeah.
Right. You talked about policy. You talked about things that were going to be important to uplifting the Black community. You didn't just leave it at Black people suck and they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. That's not where you
I've been reading Thomas Sowell lately, and I've been looking at some things. That's not it. And I think, and I know it's a nuanced point. I do want to get over to you, Kara, before we go to Josh Hawley and the ridiculousness of being mad about a straw poll. That's the issue that people have, is the fact that the substance isn't there. And it's less about Cousin Candy and more about some of what Jeff would call Black Conservative Inc., which is crack open the freaking book and understand the numbers to help the community and make your case as a conservative. That's how you build the bridge to getting people that don't really want to vote for Democrats, but you haven't given them a reason to cross over and look for a new direction, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. Make your case. And that's what when she started on YouTube, she had a fun little YouTube channel. Someone had shared a video of her once, and she was like cute and funny. And I thought I was like, oh, okay, great. A new one, come on board. But when she started to really pick up, especially after her connection with Kanye, I realized she couldn't explain herself. I watched her on a couple of liberal panels that she was invited to, and I was cringing for her. I mean, I don't even know her, and I think people will get the sense I don't like her. I don't know her enough to not like her. I just don't like what she represents. But watching her, I felt badly for her because she didn't have the knowledge, the thought process. It was clear that she hadn't thought through these ideas. She couldn't defend the ideas. She had the talking points down, but there just was no depth to it. And so this is why people who are looking at us and feeling like we're being harsh or unfair to her, or maybe we're not really seeing how she's helped Black people or whatever, but this is what we're trying to tell you, that she's not speaking to us, she's speaking to you. And that's why she can use talking points, and that you'll leave it there because where you are, you have other concerns, right? Like maybe you live in Mississippi and you have concerns about flooding near you, or maybe you live in Oregon and you have concerns about whatever. your concerns aren't necessarily the same concerns as ours, because we're Black people living Black life every day. And so we think about things from the Black perspective. We think about things, how they're going to affect the Black community. And so when we do hear someone like Candace speaking, or any Black person speaking about ideas, we want to hear the thought process behind those ideas. We want to hear your ideas for solutions. We want to talk about them, argue about them, debate them, agree with them, or whatever. But Candace doesn't do that. She can't do that. Therefore, she's not speaking to us, because we would ask questions. We would need some more answers. But why she's so popular, why she's now with one of the biggest conservative outlets in the nation right now, is because the talking points are enough for the audience that she's reaching. And that's fine. I don't want to shame you if you like her. I'm not trying to shame you. I'm just trying to say that if you see Black people like us saying she doesn't speak for us, I'm trying to explain why. And you choose your entertainment. You choose it. We can't make you choose anything else but what you want to see. But don't tell us that she is taking, quote, Black people off the plantation.
That ain't gonna
That's
work.
not what's happening here.
No,
That's ridiculous. But it's
real
the
quick.
whole Omarosa model of I'm in charge of the Black people.
Are we throwing out receipts today everywhere?
Yes, I got
Doc
receipts.
don't like
everywhere.
Omarosa. Doc don't like
Yes.
Omarosa.
No, absolutely not. Because you're in charge of the Black people. No, you are not. And
No.
so for Candace, when you get up on the Hill to testify, you have nothing to say. And then you go, oh, they attacked me. They attacked you because you lack substance.
No, and
Well,
here's what's worse. It's Dr. M, to your point, it's they attacked me. Please help me defend myself.
Right.
By
And give me
sending
some
a
money.
contribution of
$5.
$250 or $1,000.
Cash app, baby.
That's exactly what people are frustrated about. And let me say this before we go to Josh Hawley and have to get out of here. For those of you that are saying you're way too hard on Candace, have you not watched this show? Kira and I go at it every single episode. You know, there's always a debate in this show.
And by the way, let me say this, Lenny. Let me say this, because this is important. What you're saying is really important, because even now, as we're talking, I'm watching. I'm getting a lot of pushback on Twitter for daring to repost The Trouble with Candace article. My producer is in there. He's jumping in, trying to cause some trouble. But every time when we talk about Candace or people like her like this, what happens is a bunch of folks jump in and they go, we're all on the same side. We need all the, Black support we can get. I hate to see Black people fighting. I hate to see Black conservatives fighting.
We're not kids.
Tantalizing. We're not a child, and we're not fighting. We're discussing. We're debating. Don't tell. Nobody gets on. Nobody goes to Fox News and says, oh, everybody on the five, I wish you white people would just get along. Why can't you all we need everybody on the same side. Why can't you all just be saying the same thing? We don't need to say the same thing. It's condescending. Please don't say that anymore. We're not fighting. We're disagreeing. We're not children. Okay, we don't need to go to our rooms and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. We all have different opinions. And guess what? As Lenny was just making this very salient point, it's okay.
It is okay. And I was singing Kumbaya and doing the, little thing. I don't have a lighter, but you ignored me. So I digress before we go. Can somebody answer for me in like 60 seconds or less? Why is Josh Hawley trying to overturn straw poll results? Why would anybody even bring that up or be concerned about that? One, the former president that everybody is pissed off isn't in there in regards to people at CPAC. He won the straw poll. Is anybody shocked? Number two, the governor that opened up his state so that you can move CPAC from Maryland to Florida came in second place. Is anybody surprised? So for you to sit there and even have this be a floated story, which of course you can deny, but I shouldn't even hear about this. Jeff, why would somebody who already is trying to rebuild their name allow this to hit the news cycle at all?
I didn't even know about this story, and it's ridiculous. Like, dude, just take a seat. I mean, you've got a good position. Maybe someday somebody might want you to be president. Maybe, work on your little statist tendencies that you have with wanting to introduce bills that would limit people's time on social media. It's just let it go.
Dr. M?
And I mean, look. At the end of the day, Josh, breaking news: if Trump does not run in 2024, it will be DeSantis. It will not be you. So you need to just go on about your business. You tried to overturn one election. You're trying to now overturn a straw poll? Dude, really?
Kira, quickly.
Just get in where you fit in, dude. I mean, it's just this is not the hill to die on. I think what he did is he's one of the few people that's made the gross miscalculation of judging the right and the base of the right as being angry with Trump. But what happened, and so he's thinking like Liz Cheney was thinking for a minute there, right? Like, great, we got rid of Trump. We've moved on. The people have woken up. The spell's been broken. And now I'm going to establish myself as the anti-Trump guy who was here to lead you all along.
He was just hugging Trump. He literally was just hugging Trump in January.
Because
he was all on his,
because when the people who aren't authentic or smart can't figure out the Trump thing. They can't figure it out. So some of McConnell, now he's back on board with Trump, like
everybody.
For now.
I will say this like I did 5 years ago that we're ending the show. The Trump thing basically only works for Trump. Stop trying to do the Trump thing because it only works for Trump. And that's a credit to him. But if you're trying to follow that, hooey on you, and you deserve it. We got to go. Kira, what 7,675 things do you have going on this week? And how many TV shows are you going to be on and make us look like we're just, second rate?
No, well, I guess you can see me on the first on the Jesse Kelly show on the first. I think that airs this weekend, probably on Saturday, and I had the pleasure of doing the Hugh Hewitt show on Wednesday with fill-in host Kurt Schlichter. So if you want to go listen to that audio, you can find it. Of course, as always, join me over on my community page, a safe place to chat without any censorship or interference. That's davisnation.locals.com. Come on over there. We're chatting about all of the things. And lastly, don't ever forget that you can listen to Yourself with Kira Davis wherever you find your podcast. And my latest episode is getting a lot of buzz.
Listen to who?
Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis. Lenny, just listen to me. Lenny.
It's so easy to you just pull her in, Dr. M. You just pull her in.
Don't even worry about it. Listen to my show, everybody, even though Lenny's being a smart ass right now. Don't listen to him. Listen to my show.
You know how these Carlton conservatives can be sometimes. Dr. Metzler, go ahead, please.
Well, this week primarily just taking time off with my family. My 95-year-old great aunt went on, and so just celebrating her 95 years of a bountiful life.
Thank you, rest in peace. Amen.
Yes, thank you.
Amen. Jeff, you got to follow that up, and you got to follow up Kira. I don't know how you pulled the short straw, but go right ahead.
Yeah, well, you can see my content on Breaking Conservatarian. I'm doing live streams twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, although this week I did Tuesday and Thursday. You can get me on Twitter at Jeff on the Right, and I will be on Bridget Fettisy's podcast this coming Thursday. So watch for that to drop. It was an amazing conversation. We talked for almost 2 hours about everything under the sun. So give it a listen.
Nobody wants to talk to me. I have nothing exciting to talk about.
To you every week, Lenny. We deserve to sit here for an hour and talk to you every single. You know what? We're done. This show's done. Lenny is being ungrateful right now. I'm so sorry, everybody.
He's canceling me. I thought you were conservative. Anywho, you know where to find us each week. We're probably going to a new time. I think we're going to be moving us to premiering every week at 12 noon Eastern and Pacific time, so that Kira can wake up on time and Jeff can actually show up on time. So in the meanwhile, put chatter in the chat room. Tweet us up. You know we love you. We will catch up to you soon. Follow all the great people on this show here at Red and Black. Kira stuff, Jeff stuff, Dr. M stuff, and wherever I might eventually show up. In the meanwhile, we love you. Have a fantastic weekend and a great week. TCNGB, take care and God bless.
Bye.
Bye.